That carb-heavy meal floods the bloodstream with now readily available the insulin surge. Insulin rushes in to pull that out of the bloodstream, but it often overshoots what it needs. So let me be blunt. You don't need diabetes to wreck your brain. All it takes is a muffin and a glass of orange juice. Because every time your blood sugar spikes, even if you don't feel it, your brain gets inflamed, stressed, and starved. And what happens over time? That adds up to things like brain fog and mood swings, cognitive decline, and eventually things like dementia. So sugar doesn't just make you fat. It makes you forget who you are. So welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Mark Shankman. Welcome back to the Obesity Project. This is episode 94. Sugar is hijacking your brain, literally one spike at a time. So let's talk about why glucose spikes are a brain problem. So your brain runs on fuel, but it needs that fuel in balance. And when blood sugar spikes and crashes, it disrupts things like neuron energy supply, which are the brain cells and the energy supplying those brain cells, inflammatory signaling, so chemicals that trigger inflammation, and neurotransmitter regulation. These are the neurochemicals or the chemicals that go between brain cells to transmit signal and transmit information. So neuron energy supply, inflammatory signaling, and neurotransmitter regulation. So I want to touch on two different research studies. One in neurology in 2016 showed that even short-term blood sugar spikes impair working memory and attention, regardless of diabetes status. And there was another report in Nature Reviews of Neuroscience in 2020 that showed that repeated glycemic fluctuations, those high and low spikes of blood sugar, are linked to higher risk of depression, Alzheimer's, and cognitive decline. So, when you're saying to yourself, man, this getting old stuff sucks, it may not just be that you're getting old, it may be that you're eating the wrong foods. So let's put it in terms that, better make this understandable. It's like flickering the lights on and off in your house every few seconds. Eventually, what's going to happen is the wiring is going to burn out, and that's what the sugar is doing to our brains. So it's not just mental, it's metabolic. And here's how sugar hijacks the brain, literally step by step. So step one, the spike. That carb-heavy meal floods the bloodstream with now readily available glucose or blood sugar. Step two, the insulin surge. Insulin rushes in to pull that blood sugar out of the bloodstream, but it often overshoots what it needs, meaning you get a much higher insulin spike or a much higher amount of insulin released in response to that sugary meal, and that sends the blood sugar screaming downward. So step three is literally just that, the crash. So your glucose plummets because of that massive insulin surge, more than needed. The blood glucose or blood sugar plummets, and now your brain is signaling that it's starving once again. Even if there's plenty of available energy, your brain feels like it's starving because of this lowered blood sugar. And so what happens after that is step four, which is the panic sets in. Your brain releases cortisol and adrenaline to literally save you, leading to things like anxiety, irritability, and brain fog. And there was a study in the Journal of Clinical Investigation in 2017 that talks about how glucose variability activates stress pathways, say that 3 times fast, stress pathways in the brain, and worsens cognitive performance within just several hours. So this is like you're feeding your brain like you're on a roller coaster, up and down and off the rails. Eventually, it wants off the ride. So Now, section 3. So the addiction to sugar is a real phenomenon because I want you to pay attention to that picture you see behind me. On the left, this way, everything's mirrored in Zoom. On the left, this is a picture of your brain on an MRI after a glucose infusion or after you have some sugar. And now you see the pattern that lights up right there, right? Now, the picture on the right here, this picture is after a person uses cocaine and they take an MRI after that. And you can see here, both things completely equal, right? The same centers light up and they light up just the same way. I promise you, this isn't two same pictures side by side. This is an actual image of two MRIs, one of someone who had sugar and one of someone who used cocaine. So there is no question at all that sugar is absolutely addictive in the same way as drugs, as gambling, as smoking, as any of these things that release dopamine, because the reward centers of the brain light up the same way when you do those things as when you eat sugar. All right, now the next section. Now we want to talk about why this happens even with quote unquote normal labs. So your fasting glucose could be right around 90, normal. Your A1C might be 5.6, normal, or at least pushing toward prediabetes, but still in the normal range at this point. And you could still be spiking to 160 after a healthy oatmeal breakfast, healthy in quotes. That's called postprandial hyperglycemia, and it's invisible on routine labs. Now, what postprandial hyperglycemia is an elevated blood sugar after eating a meal that shouldn't cause as big of a spike as it does, right? So postprandial meaning after you eat, hyperglycemia, elevated sugar levels. So maybe your blood sugar should spike to 130 or 140, maybe it goes up to 160 or 170. And that's what this postprandial hyperglycemia is. And again, it's invisible on routine labs. So your doctor is not going to see this in your normally run laboratory exam. So there was a study in Diabetologia in 2019 showed that glucose spikes after meals predict dementia risk more strongly than A1C in older adults, even when the fasting glucose is normal, which is a scary concept. So how do you protect your brain from this sugar sabotage? We're going to talk about that now in the next section. But let's talk about the brain protective plan. So here's how you shut down the sugar hijack. So first, you want to remove the hidden sugars, things like granola, smoothies, cereals, health bars. You want to lower carb load per meal, especially in the morning. In the morning really starts that up and down roller coaster ride that we see very, very often. And if you start first thing in the morning, that's going to go on all day long. So lower amount of carbs per meal, especially focused on that morning meal. Have a very highly satiating, savory breakfast, something that is high in protein and fat and lower in total carbohydrates. You want to add protein and fat, as I just mentioned. What this does is it actually slows digestion and blunts the glucose response. So if you eat those proteins and fats, that's going to slow down or limit that blood sugar spike. It's going to blunt it and make it more rounded, not as high a peak, make it lower spike, but over a longer period of time. Also, you want to walk after meals to reduce post-meal spikes. The muscles, especially the large muscles in our lower extremities, in our legs, is a great glucose sink, meaning it takes up lots of that glucose that you receive after those meals and after those spikes begin. So walking after meals will soak up and absorb much of that glucose that needs to be dealt with and lower that insulin spike as a result. You can also experiment with things like CGMs, which are continuous glucose monitors, or a finger stick to find what your personal triggers are, what actually creates those spikes for you. What spikes different people is going to be different food. So I might react much more strongly to one thing, and you might react less strongly to that same exact type of food. And then, of course, me being a carnivore diet person and a fan of these keto and low-carb diets, you definitely want to consider those, especially if brain fog or a family history of dementia, Alzheimer's, cognitive decline is present in your family. So just to kind of give you some science behind that, there was a report from Frontiers in Neuroscience in 2022 that said that ketogenic diets improve brain energy metabolism and cognitive performance in insulin-resistant individuals. That's with or without a diagnosis of diabetes. So you can be insulin resistant for many, many, many years, even decades, before receiving a diagnosis of diabetes, just because the insulin levels are climbing. Nobody's checking for those. You're not even aware you're insulin resistant because your blood sugars remain constant. Finally, when your body can't keep up anymore, that blood sugar starts to rise and the A1C starts to rise, and then you're diagnosed with diabetes. So no question, ketogenic diets will improve brain energy metabolism and cognitive performance. So here's the takeaway. This isn't about blood sugar for diabetes. It's about blood sugar for brain survival. This thing over here, not this thing over here. So this has been episode 94 of the Obesity Project. Sugar is hijacking your brain, literally one spike at a time. This isn't a diet issue. It's a neurological one. Every spike inflames your neurons. Every crash starves your brain. And over time, it rewires your mind. So you don't need to wait for a diagnosis to make a change. If your brain is crashing, it's time to change your fuel. And don't forget, here on the Obesity Project, we're cutting through the myths, getting to the root. So thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for episode 95. Breakfast is not the most important meal. It's the most dangerous. We're going to break down how modern breakfast foods sabotage satiety and spike cravings all day long. So once again, thank you so much for watching. I very much appreciate your attention. I very much appreciate your time. And like, share, and comment. Hit that subscribe button. Subscribing to the YouTube channel is absolutely the best way that you can support this channel. Free support, costs you nothing. And we really appreciate you hitting that subscribe notification and that subscribe button and that bell notification. It's a simple, easy, quick thing that you can do right now. Click that button. You can do it right now. It costs you nothing, and it will help to continue to bring out this very much needed information that so many people are unaware of. So again, thank you for your time, your effort, and your attention, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.